A very good evening to all the participants attending this webinar. Today, we are having the second lecture of Occupational Therapy Skill Building webinar series. This is the first and the foremost. I would like to thank our President AIOTA and also our Executive Chairman ACORD, Dr. Pankaj Bajpayee sir, and also our Dean ACORD, Dr. Jyotika Bildani madam, for this wonderful initiative. Now, I would like to request our Honorable President AIOTA to deliver his welcome address, please.
Thank you, Dr. Batra. Although the duration of this lecture is very less, so I will not go into very long address. Just in short, I welcome Dr. Vaishali. Just we were talking about our long association at different forum with Dr. Vaishali, and I am thankful that Dean is here and Dean has taken a good initiative to start this program. Such type of program are required, and during this interaction, I came to know that Vaishali is meeting Dean Madam after a long time. So this forum is also useful for that. So at least we can see each other faces. So we will not forget their faces. This is and I also welcome all the participants here who have registered. They have taken time to join. And I have just now also updated my status WhatsApp so that with the request that join immediately within 8 p.m. so that we can start the program. My thanks and welcome also to Dr. Batra, who is taking a lot of doing a lot of hard work in preparing the interacting with the speakers, finding out the good speakers, reputed, renowned, experienced speakers, and also managing this designing of poster and form, Google form, etc. I also welcome my honorary secretary, Dr. Joseph, who is behind the scene and working on this all Zoom platform so that our program will go smoothly and will be recorded also. So welcome everyone and thank you joining. Let us start and let us hear what Dr. Vaishali says.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, you have always been a guiding spirit to us. And thank you for your kind address. Now, with your permission, I would like to welcome our speakers today's lecture, Dr. Vaishali Pai Madam, who would be deliberating on understanding early intervention strategies for lower and middle income group population. So Dr. Vaishali Pai Madam, as you all are aware of, she is a renowned, experienced professional in the field of occupational therapy. And Madam has more than 35 years of experience in the occupational therapy.
Sorry, Dr. Batra, I am interrupting you. Just one name I forgot. Dr. Anita Gupta is here, very senior person. Especially we invited her. Sorry, Dr. Anita. Especially,
don't bother. Don't bother. Sir. It's okay. It's okay. Let's continue, sir.
No, but still, you are means with all regards. You are here, and as a moderator, you are here. So I must welcome to you also.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you all and thank you all. Madam Dr. Vaishali Pai, she is a founder director of the Maha Trust. Madam is Masters in Occupational Therapy, Development and Disabilities. She is a gold medalist. She has done Masters in Neuro-Linguistic Program. She has also been trained in kinesio taping, and she has done 6-month training program in feedback, my area of interest, sorry, and from the Booker method from Miami. She has also done 3 years program on early intervention, the family training program, and she has also worked as a course on the pranic healing. Madam, area of specialization is disability, childhood, neurological condition, sports medicine, and she is also an NLP practitioner. Madam has held many positions, like she has been the ex-joint secretary Disability NGO Alliance Karnataka. She was former executive member of Shri Annapurna Trust. She has worked as a social scientist in the Institutional Ethical Committee of Bengaluru. She has also been a member of Curriculum Review Committee for Occupational Therapy course. She also worked as a director of Petrusha, Karnataka. She was member of Advocacy Committee of Organization of Rare Diseases, and a former member of core family of Early Childhood Developmental Task Force. Madam has also been a member of many NGOs. She has represented NGO representative at the Internal Complaint Committee of various universities. She is on the board of trustees of Enfold Proactive Health Trust. She is an ex-board member of APD and also a member of Ethics Committee as social scientist and advisor to Kedara Innovation Private Limited. Along with Madam, welcome Madam. Along with Madam, we also have our moderator for today's program, the subject expert, Dr. Anita Gupta Madam. Madam is lecturer and head of the Department of Occupational Therapy, All India Institute of Physical Medicine and Rehab, Mumbai. Madam has done Masters in Occupational Therapy and Developmental Disability. She has also done PG Diploma in Rehab with more than 30 years of experience. Her area of expertise has been developmental disability, work rehabilitation, driving for disabled, etc. Madam Anita Gupta, she has also presented many research papers and she has also been a resource person for many conferences, seminars, and lectures. And she has also guided many PG, postgraduate, and dissertation work as a guide and co-guide in various positions. So without wasting time, I would like to request our honorable resource person to start with her lecture today. Thank you, madam. Now I'm stop sharing and you please start sharing your slide.
Thank you very much. It's a little intimidating to sit here and talk in front of stalwarts from those who keep looking the same and absolutely refuse to look any different. So Dr. Vajpayee, Dr. Anita ma'am, it's a pleasure to be talking over here in front of you. Dr. Gupta, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, but we will do it today virtually. Thank you, Dr. Batra, for keeping in touch all the time. I don't know how many times I must have troubled him, and for giving me this opportunity. So let's start off with sharing, knowledge sharing. Having spent about 25 years in this field of early intervention, it's a second skin to me, and probably my thought process has been changing over the last 25 years about the way I look at early intervention. I look at pediatric neurology. My thoughts may not be in alignment with typical occupational therapy thoughts, but trust me, my heart is always going to be of an occupational therapist. Yes, so the points we are going to be focusing on today is what is early intervention, how can we adapt it to the Indian situation. And when I say Indian situation, I basically am looking at India as a developing nation where there are disadvantaged communities, not just geographically disadvantaged or what we would typically say that there is difficulty in finding intervention services in tier 2, tier 3 cities or the more rural areas. But there are geographically disadvantaged areas even within our metros. And I believe that the way that we should be able to handle that situation is different from a typical metro situation. How does early intervention fit into occupational therapy? I hope I'm going to be able to answer these three questions. Before we go there, I also want to, share something else. I am going to put up if you can go to the chat. Okay, this is a little difficult for me because I'm not used to handling everything by myself. So here I go. Okay, chat. I am putting up a Mentimeter link in the chat. And if everyone can just click on that Mentimeter link, you will be able to go there and answer the question which has been put up. I will now share the Mentimeter slide, and I hope it comes on. If it doesn't, bad luck. Okay. Can you see my Mentimeter slide? Is it visible? The question says, what are the
Yes,
domains of development? Yeah, feel free. And whatever comes to mind. Let's set the ball rolling and let's set the stage for what we're going to talk today. So the domains of development are okay. No one so far. Okay, social, physical, mental, emotional, keep it coming. Communication, good one. Emotional, physical, social, mental, communication, awesome. Awesome. Tell me, I think we'll have only about 10 seconds more. And then we go back to the presentation. So executive functions, learning new skills, psychological. Yep. All right then. Yep. Lots of good answers. And let's look at what we are going to talk today. I'm going. Oh, shit. Yes, so that was a quiz time. And keep in mind the domains that you have spoken about. When we talk in terms of developmental domains, we talk more in terms of, I mean, the scientific names would be something like motor domains, so gross motor, fine motor, the personal social domain, cognition, communication. So that basically sums it, and most of the answers were right there. What is early intervention? So it's basically a comprehensive, I mean, if you go to the purist's definition, it's a comprehensive set of services that are provided to children from birth to 3 years of age and their families. Now, this is a typical EI definition of 1989. And it goes something like it's either home-based or center-based or community-based. It's cross-disciplinary, but coordinated with one another. There are many services, comprehensive, intensive. It could be short-term and limited. Includes information support strategies designed to minimize the effects of disability, mainly to ensure that we reduce the effects of disability and we prevent secondary disabilities, and includes efforts to improve child's performance in all the domains. So we were talking about, I mean, I just mentioned cognition, fine, gross motor, social, emotional development, etc. So that is the purest definition. And I'm not going to dwell too much on it because most of you are going to be aware of this. What are the important aspects of early intervention that the definition tells us? One, and very important, I mean, if we want to work and be successful in early intervention, then an active parental intervention, an active parental involvement or family involvement is extremely important. There are multi-instrument evaluations that must be done and reviewed regularly. Transdisciplinary model of service. Now, this is something that I personally believe in. I prefer transdisciplinary to cross-disciplinary. I believe that one person handling multiple disciplines is a much better, has much better prospects for the baby than multiple individuals coming in together, even if they're talking to each other. And I will explain why I believe so. So the individual therapy is to be kept at a minimum, and training should emphasize function rather than the fixing of the child. Now, what is the role of occupational therapists? I'm not going to dwell on this, absolutely not. But we generally focus on milestones, sensory issues, school readiness. So our focus generally is on the we talk in terms of hand functions, we talk on sensory integration, functional independence, adaptations. I hope I'm not missing anything. I also now want to share something else. Again, a little quiz time. And okay, looks like my quiz is gone. Please bear with me. There's one more quiz, and it'll be interesting to, it's again, once again in the chat, and it'll be interesting to know what people think. I am going to try and figure out how to get the new slide, which I think is going to be a bit of a problem. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I don't think this is working. This is a bit difficult for me to handle a talk and do the sharing. So I think we will give that a miss. But go ahead and just let's look at your answers on the chat. What are the things that we would like to focus on? If you would like to just respond to that Mentimeter. I'm sorry, that Mentimeter thing is a bit tough for me to do. I'm talking about functional independence. Yes, exactly. We're looking at functional independence. We're looking at sensory integration. But my question would be, what is it that if you were not to fix the issue, what would it be that you would want to focus on? Sorry for the Mentimeter problem. Language development, absolutely, yes, language development. Okay, handwriting, right? ADL, bilateral integration, body awareness, absolutely awesome. Nutrition. Okay, so yeah, keep it coming. Wholesome development. I would like to know what you mean by wholesome development. Social capabilities, age appropriate development in different domains. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. I know you all want to continue writing, but I think we are going to not be able to. Oh my God, is this happening? Right. So I'm going to jump from what is it that we're going to have to focus on to emotional development. What is emotional development? What is intelligence? There is a reason why we are going to have to understand what is emotional development. Most of the time, as occupational therapists, that is one part I feel that we do not really focus on. But in order to be able to use our therapies effectively and to work in early intervention, one of the things is let's look at when does emotional development start. Any thoughts about when does emotional development start? Anybody? At what age would emotional development start? Yeah, till the answers come in, let's look at basically what is it that that emotional intelligence and emotional development is about. So emotional intelligence is about the ability to monitor and regulate one's and others' feelings and to be able to guide thought and action. And how does this happen? This happens due to the proper functioning of two very important domains. And that's why we started off with the domains of development. So the cognitive domain is one of the major things, the intelligence, what we would afterwards talk about intelligence, and the subcortical function of emotions. Those are the two things. There is a lot of writing on the slide. Go ahead, you can read it, but there is just too much, and there's something that you all know. It's about the function, the brain, the development of the brain, and the areas of the brain that are associated with emotional development, and any injury to any part of the brain, to this part of the brain, is going to cause problems with emotional development. Now, the points to remember over here are, for an effective output of function, the brain has to function as a whole, which means that all parts of the brain have to actively participate in the activity. This is something that all of us know. I'm not talking any rocket science. The neurotypical infant's brain uses this particular capacity, that is the capacity to be able to use that entire brain to learn things with repetition and to make sense of the consequences. So when a child functions with using an entire brain, does something, gets a response and looks at the consequence, repeats it, and makes changes to the response, that is when learning happens. That is when cognition happens. And this is very closely connected with the emotional response of the baby as well as of the person who is involved with the baby. And if you noticed in my earlier slide, I said I prefer not to have individual therapies, which will work silostically, in silos. And this is the reason, because if we're able to ensure that the child is able to utilize the entire brain as a whole, even a child with brain damage, it would mean that there are higher possibilities of multiple domains coming together and working in cohesion. Now, unfortunately, the brain of a child with development disability is unable to automatically do this. And that is why we need to have things like early intervention. Emotional intelligence gives the emotional centers of the brain to work together with the cognitive centers. This is something that I said earlier. Now, some of the emotional functions are, I had asked when does emotional development start. Unfortunately, I did not get any answers, but emotional development starts from birth. And 0 to 3 months is when there is the first emotional phase which starts. And by 3 years, which is technically what our early intervention is, when almost about 50% of the emotional development is already finished or over. And by 6 years, most of the emotional development is done. And this then becomes very important because appropriate emotional experiences help. Again, I'm sorry, I'm just repeating myself. But what are these parts of emotional development? If we look at, one is the most important one, which starts at between 0 to 3 months, is the self-awareness and self-regulation. Being able to recover well from distress, having a realistic assessment of our abilities. And it's so surprising that an infant of 3 months is able to do it if it gets the correct responses from the people around. Motivation. What is motivation? Motivation is being able to take an initiative and to persevere in the face of setbacks and frustrations. Empathy, cultivating rapport and attune with a broad range of people, and of course, social skills. Handling emotions in relationships well and accurately, and read social situations accurately. Interact smoothly, and be able to work within a group, which of course will start with your peers first and then move on to a much larger picture. Now, this is everything that an emotional development does. So when I spoke about transdisciplinary approach, my focus on developmental domains, if it was me who was going to do early intervention, would be to not have, as an occupational therapist, work only on a particular domain or a particular skill, but rather use the entire brain of the child in order to be able to add cognitive development, communication, personal social development, and of course, use parent training and emotional development. Now, again, in child development, I'm sure all of you have learned about zones of proximal development, ZPDs. You know how to use them. But some exciting things, which many of the principles which are taken from Maria Montessori's methodology, is about how these different domains of development interact with each other. One example which I like to give often is about the gross motor development or even the fine motor development of an infant or a toddler. It begins because there is cognitive development happening. The fine motor development happens because there is communication happening. And all of this, mind you, is happening between starting at birth, going on to 6 to 8 months. The example I like to give is that we often want the child to stand up, but the standing up of the child is not dependent only on the motor functions of the child. You can make a child stand, but the intrinsic development or the want to be able to stand up, and what is then going to ensure that that development becomes stronger, is the cognitive aspect of it. So a baby will stand up multiple times, fall on the bum, stand up again, keep falling. But if there is something really exciting, which is there at the top of on the table, on a coffee table or somewhere where the baby can see and wants to reach out to, that is the best intrinsic motivation for the child to want to stand up. And that is how babies and all of us have basically learned how to stand, how to take those steps, side steps, and how to walk straight. Our communication is dependent on our touch. We touch. This very often starts. It starts during the early days when the mom and the baby are intimately connected during feeding. And that is when the communication actually starts. And the nonverbal communication, which is actually 80% of the communication, starts at that time. Why am I talking so much about this? Because how our understanding how the baby is responding is going to be very important for us to be able to become early interventionists, to be able to fill in the minute details of development. So when I had asked about which are the major milestones or the domains that we are looking at, there are specific things that as therapists we tend to focus on. What we unfortunately miss or what falls through the cracks are these minute developmental milestones, which are equally important, and how we should be able to pick on them in order to be able to ensure that the major milestones are attained. Now, what happens, going back now to what happens in India or any of the developing countries, is late identification, late diagnosis, and therefore late intervention. Very often in our country, due to a multiple reasons, there could be ignorance, there could be lack of professional support, unavailability of interventionists, cultural factors, or societal fear. Most of the families tend to shield the child rather than seek any kind of answer or intervention for the babies. Now, of course, even if they do want to seek, many a times there are not sufficient people available for them to go to. As a result, what happens is things are changing. Definitely things are changing now. But very often the families reach out. By the time they reach out for any help, medical or therapy help, the baby is already 4 or 5 years of age, which means that golden definition of early intervention, 0 to 3 years, is already lost. And how do we then ensure that very critical interventions which I spoke about earlier, which happen which start at 0 and which go from 0 to 3 and to 3 to 6 and 6 to 9, how do we let go of that? Should the child just not be trained onto those mini milestones? What would be the answer? So for me, I believe that when it comes to our country or any developing nation for that matter, can we tweak the definition of early intervention? Instead of focusing on the chronological age of the child, can we look at the developmental age of the child and look at which are the milestones that the child is at the moment and start providing intervention? Remember, I was speaking about the transdisciplinary intervention, not the multidisciplinary intervention or cross-disciplinary intervention, and help the child to encourage the brain to work on developing those essential but invisible milestones that are building blocks of later brain function, which are the critical milestones and which will eventually improve on their cognition, on their thinking, the logical reasoning, critical memory techniques, etc., which will then reach to academic function. So, sorry. For our developing nation, is that an answer? I would feel so, yes. I'm presenting a study that we had done over the last, I've been working, like I said, I've been working in early intervention for the last 25 years. And Tamahar, the mainstay of Tamahar is early intervention. So we did a study. I'm presenting a very small, short part of the study that we've done. this, what I'm presenting to you is about 12 children who have moderate to severe disability. Their average chronological age is 8 and almost going up to 9 years. 45% of them were on the spectrum. And if you notice that the first average assessmental age, if you notice, and cognition was about 22 months, cognition communication was 32 months, communication 31 months, fine motor 32 months, gross 36, it was just about 3 years. Personal social was again extremely low, 27. Which means that most of the children were very well below 3 years of age at almost 9 years of age, chronological age. Now, having used the early intervention techniques that I've been talking about, in very short, I'm sorry about that, but in very short, we were over the course of 12 months able to increase, and if you look at it quite uniformly, beyond 3 years and almost reaching 4 years. So it took us about 1 month, and trust me, these were moderately affected children. So it's not easy. When they come late, your intervention starts late, which means that you have to help them unlearn a lot of things. You have to help parents unlearn a lot of things and ensure that the parents are buy-in to your intervention and are your partners when things happen, and take parts of this back home and work on it in the manner that it happens, either in your clinic or whatever setup that you have. Now, what I want to point out is that these months may not look great. They're just about 10 months difference between the first and the second assessment. But what is it? What are those mini milestones that we were able to achieve? So some of these milestones are in the personal social period part. The children were able to avoid common dangers. They were able to understand. Now, a child who just runs on the road was able to understand running on the road is not correct. They started showing awareness of social standards about, something is dirty, their dress is dirty, which needs to be changed. The toy is broken, it needs to be fixed. They were able to start working collaboratively with their peers. Children who were not able to, and like I mentioned, 45% of them were on the spectrum. Even the children on the spectrum were able to work collaboratively with peers towards some kind of a goal. They were able to show guilt. In cognition, they were able to recognize familiar signs when they were when they would go around. They would remember incidental information. Now, remembering incidental information is one thing, but to be able to relate it and to talk about it the next day or to talk about it to somebody is another thing. And that is something that they were able to do. They were able to assume different roles in fantasy plays. They were able to put together interconnected pieces of puzzles, about 4 to 5 pieces of puzzles. In communication, they were able to act out on songs. They were able to follow 2 or 3 part commands. These are those important mini milestones which can be missed, and which will actually be an important part of the personality that they will develop later on. Now, all of this together with the fine motor, they were able to build towers of 8 to 10 blocks. They were able to string small beads. They were able to unbutton large buttons and snip with scissors. Now, the important part is that the fine motor activities I just spoke about are typically occupational therapy activities, but doing them in tandem with something else gives it meaning, and that will ensure that it will stay with them for life. And that is how the transdisciplinary approach helps. Now, coming back to Indian situation, this is some very alarming situations that we have. About 53 million children under 5 years of age are living with disabilities. And they're all kinds of disabilities, of course. What is more alarming is that WHO estimates that there are less than 10 skilled rehabilitation practitioners per 1 million population in our kind of developing countries. 2% of Indians, it's about 1.75% of the entire Indian population has intellectual disability, which will translate to that humongous number, which I can't even read out. And around 1/5 of the household's monthly consumption is spent out of pocket on expenditure for disability. I have not added more statistics about the number of rare diseases that are there. Anywhere abroad, in US, I think it's 1 in a lakh. Where if there is one person in 1 lakh people who has a particular condition, then it's called a rare disease. In Japan, it is 1 in 50,000. In India, I think it's about 1 in 5,000. We have 7,000 rare diseases. Of course, not all of them are related to children, but I mean, the entire picture is pretty frightening. But we have that, and the earlier that we go ahead and try and create awareness about all of this and ensure that children get early intervention or get intervention as and when they come, but follow the developmental age, I believe that it's going to make a lot of difference to people's lives. So these are my references. And thank you very much. I know I kept it really short, but yeah, we had only this much time to talk about. So here I go. I have stopped sharing.
Thank you, ma'am. I think we should move on to the question answer session. Is anyone has any questions, please? You can raise your hand. I could not see even a single question in the chat box. Any questions?
Either I was very good or I was very bad. I am very sorry about my throat.
Okay, ma'am. Now we should
I have one question. Can I ask, please?
Yes, madam, please.
Madam, we would like to hear from you about the comparison that you can make between the institution-based and community-based and the
home-based.
Yeah, community-based and your center-based and your one-to-one kind of approach that you have spoken about. How do you compare them together?
My thoughts on this is that the principles of intervention should be the same wherever it is going to be, whether it is one-on-one or at the community level or within an institution, as long as we follow a transdisciplinary approach. As long as we ensure that parents become a part of the process and it becomes a parent training program, I don't see any difference. Of course, when it is community-based or it is institution-based, probably the best part to do it is to also do home visits in order to, one is talking to parents and telling them, go home and do this, but parents are at a loss. I mean, I'm speaking about it from my experience working with so many families. So probably the thing to be to ensure is to make home visits and ensure that parents know exactly what you're talking about. So um, we constantly give examples of, ensure that, parents don't buy all the toys that are present in our center, because that is not the point. The point is not that they put one block over the other. What are we trying to teach? We're trying to teach size, we're trying to teach coordination, and that the best place to learn that is in the kitchen. So how is it that you can take your child in the kitchen and adapt your kitchen in order to make the child understand that, one vessel goes into the other, or one vessel can go on top of the other, and it's the same as building blocks. So the principle, as long as you stay true to the principles that I was speaking about. Of course, I did not do a complete justice to it for want of time, but as long as we stick to these principles, where we understand that as occupational therapists, our job is to make people independent. And in order to make people independent, we do not need to restrict ourselves to fine motor or to sensory integration, or some two ADLs. Can we just put everything together in one basket, and put it all together and give it as one bouquet? So as long as you stick to those principles, wherever the intervention is happening should not make a difference.
Thank you, madam. Now I would like to hand over the mic to Dr. Anita Gupta, madam, please.
Yeah.
Madam, please take over the mic.
Yeah, I'm thankful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to talk today. And it was an enlightening lecture from Dr. Vaishali Pai. Early intervention is a crucial multidisciplinary effort, and it lays foundation for a child's overall development. This is what was emphasized in the lecture, by emphasizing family participation, grouping children based on developmental skills rather than diagnosis, and focusing on functional experience based learning, we can maximize outcomes. This is what madam has said in her lecture. So I think I picked up that line from what she presented, was that when you're talking about development, it is not the milestone, the chronological age that you have to match up with the child. It is the development. You have to see where the child was and how much you can have achieved, where he has begun and where he has gone now, and whether he can sustain that skill and go beyond. So it's not matching up with the normal development that you are doing, but you're trying to find out whether he has achieved his goals, and within the available setup of his school, of his home, of his family, whether he's able to gel in that community. He is able to live to the expectation in that particular stage, or that particular level, is what is important. And that is where we have to have our significant role to make him independent, as always the emphasis is on making the child independent. So the takeaway message from the lecture, I think, was parents play an active role in intervention, not just as observers, but as parents. Developmental progress should guide intervention, not just chronological age, as madam has emphasized. And there's a lot of emphasis given on emotional development, which is a vital a step for cognitive and physical growth, both. So this, I think, if it was elaborate, I think we fell short of time, but people would have wanted to know more on this aspect as to how emotional development has an influence on cognitive and physical growth, and the practical experience based learning methods, such as the Montessori and NET madam spoke about. I think if there was more talk on that, we would have, loved it much more than, what we have heard from you. I think all in all, it was a wonderful experience, and we have learned, from madam's experience, the study she mentioned about on 9-year-old children, and how she has found difference in various domains of the child's development with the intervention that was made on the child, on the children. So that was a very interesting part that she has communicated to us. So all in all, I think it was a wonderful experience, and there was a lot of learning from this lecture. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.